For thousands of years, we've been under the impression the Bible was meant to be taken seriously. Finally, a new translation that'll change all that. This is Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible! Yeah! I like that. Welcome to episode 37 of Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible with me. I'm David Tuckman. We're a QED Astoria in Queens, New York in front of a big crowd. Give it up for yourself. Yeah. Each month on the show, a guest joins me and tries to read as many chapters as possible of my own personal translation of the Hebrew Bible while I make fun of it. And tonight, we are reading the fourth portion or episode or parsha of the book Leviticus, known in Hebrew as Tazria, and in English as, well, you'll find out in a second. Today is March 29th, 2016. There is so much happening in the world. It's terrifying. I don't know if the U.S. made the World Cup right now. It's kind of driving me crazy. I hope that they did. I was watching that before I left home, and I'm kind of in this very anxious state. Thank you, everybody who came here instead of watching a preliminary soccer match that I found very important. Thanks for coming out. I feel like it's like in between the last recording and now the rise of Trump has happened. And I find myself tweeting a lot about Trump for no good reason. So, I'm sorry that I do that. I just really get wrapped up into it. There's no end to that. Just to say that, please reach out to me on Twitter. I really enjoy talking to fans online. Reach out to me on Facebook. Send me a message. I'm rated super, super duper responsive on Facebook because I apparently have no life other than to talk to people of the show. So, there's somebody here who reached out to me 2 years ago about something, and I just answered him. So it might take a little while, but reach out to me, talk to me. It's really fun. This is please talk to me, send me letters. This sounds so desperate. Oh my God. Anyway, the next show, April 18th with Nina Paley. Nina Paley is a cartoonist who's working on a film of animations based on the story of Exodus. That will be occurring at an undisclosed location at 7:30 p.m. So keep an eye out for that.
Are you going to disclose it?
I will disclose it eventually. It
helps turnout if you disclose it.
I suppose I should. Voice that hasn't been introduced yet.
Sorry.
That's fine.
That's God.
That's the voice of God. We'll get to him in just a second. Anyway, it's an undisclosed location. I'm saying that more because it's a friend's private residence. That's a really incredible home that I've wanted to do the show in for a really long time, but I don't yet want to announce his address on the airwaves that everybody in the world comes to his house. So that will be at 7:30 p.m. on April 18th. Keep an eye out for when that's going to be. Let's get to our guest. Are you guys ready for your guest? He's already spoken a little bit. You've heard him before. You've heard him on Tablet Magazine's podcast Unorthodox, which he hosts along with Leah Leibowitz and Stephanie Butnick. You've also read him in the New York Times, where he writes a column about religion called Beliefs. Please give it up for Mark Oppenheimer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You may now speak.
I may now speak. Yes, that was God's voice.
It must be really hard to hold back when you host a podcast when there's a mic in front.
As you know.
Yes, no, yes, I know I do. I talk
you
a lot.
It's really...
I say some things I shouldn't.
It's really the narcissist's gift, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's wonderful.
Once upon a time, we were just there with our cassette recorders pressing record.
Oh, you did that too, yeah.
Totally. Pressing record. I actually would... I'm a little older than you. I would, when I wanted to record something that was on the radio, I'd hold my cassette recorder up to the radio and just press record. And then I would pretend to be Casey Kasem. And...
I torture.
It's gotten so much more high tech since
it's really, podcasting is so wonderful for
narcissists.
Narcissist, lonely little children. I used to torture my family by taking one of their cordless phones up and connecting it using this intercom system to the base of the phone and then introducing songs that were playing on the radio.
Well, aren't you fancy with your cordless phone?
Yes.
We just had the kind with cords in my house.
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't have your money.
Now kids these days.
They
don't even know what a cord is. Anyway.
They don't use the phone.
No, they don't.
No, they
never call millennials, am I right?
They just sex.
Ask
my 9-year-old. Just kidding. I can't believe I threw my 9-year-old under the bus that way.
For a legal activity like that. Thank you for coming out here.
You're welcome.
So you are something of a religious scholar, I guess.
Yeah.
You're
I usually hang out with people who know less than I do. So yes. in most company, I'm a religious scholar.
But you write a column for the Times called Beliefs.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? What is that about?
That's
usually?
A newspaper column.
Okay. So what is a newspaper?
So newspapers are these things that you could buy at newsstands.
Okay. I know about crossword puzzles.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, they used to joke actually that what we used to think before we had metrics and knew what people were reading was we used to think they were reading the articles, but in fact we now know that they were just playing the newspaper. They weren't reading it.
Yes.
So they had, the crossword, the word jumble, the box scores. In fact, it turns out nobody cares about the articles at all. They just, and we were living under a mass delusion for 200 years, really, that people were reading the articles. But in fact, we did have inklings, because if you accidentally dropped a comic one day, you got 1,000 letters. And if you accidentally dropped, a major news story, you got 5. So we knew.
I've heard about that. And interestingly, the only periodical where people actually read the articles, Playboy.
Yes, which I've written for.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I used to think I was the only person who had written for Playboy and the Christian Century, which is a Protestant weekly. But I've since gotten emails from 2 other people who had read that in my bio line and have said, actually, no, they also have written for Playboy and the Christian Century.
Interesting. Well, what I wanted to talk to you about.
Paid well.
Playboy plays well.
Playboy pays
maybe
well.
Not anymore, but.
No, they're going under, but they paid well.
That's good. That's, those sweet nudity money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a magazine that you really play with, I think. Anyway, let's talk a little bit. I've been reading some of your articles, and some of them have to do a little bit with what what I'm doing on this show. I was especially curious about one that focused on the idea of whether or not Jews, Muslims, and Christians all worship the same God.
Right. It's a very profound question. When a Muslim says Allah and we say Adonai, is it the same dude or dudette?
Right.
And it's hard to say. There are many, many answers to that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're asking me what I think.
Well, what do you think?
Here,
I'm going to pin you down.
No, I think not. I mean, I think. Okay. Look, Christians. I mean, one of my daughters said to me, she's like, "Dad, do you know that Christians believe that God actually became a man
crazy
and died on purpose?" And I was like, I know.
That's ridiculous.
Out of the mouths of babes, and she looked at me. She's like, they also believe in Santa Claus. And to her, these are like co-equally absurd beliefs, right? No, like people who believe in a Trinitarian God who has 3 forms, one of which is a crucified human, and people who believe in God as just bearded man in the sky, those are different belief systems, I think. But I understand the people who say, no, they're just different metaphorical paths to the same eternal truth.
And I think that's what I think appeals to me, that kind of approach.
Okay, that's nice for you. Yeah.
Well, what do you think about
wrong,
that? Okay, why is it wrong then?
Because they're different. Because read your Torah. It's actually, and then read your have you ever read the New Testament?
Not yet.
You who went to Orthodox day school, right? So what they don't give you
right after Gemara, I think.
What they don't give Orthodox boys in Jew school is the New Testament. It's just a different thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I think is
they might be right. Don't get me wrong. Their thing may actually be right.
They might be the truth.
In which case, we're screwed.
We're totally screwed
in the end times. But
well, Jesus saves.
It's a different thing.
He'll let us.
What
if we repent and
well, that's a whole other that's a whole other question of whether you can posthumously atone, and get saved anyway. I mean, the Southern Baptists would say no. If you don't pay your dues here on earth, straight to hell.
We're right though. We're right.
I mean, I gotta hope so, because I'm not becoming a Southern Baptist.
Well, it's an interesting question to me because I kind of go back and forth over it, and I think that to me, the concept of God as we understand it now might not quite be what is actually in this text. And this is that's the reason that when we read this, I don't use the word God in this. I really try to avoid the word God, because what the Jews are worshiping in this is a deity that's named Jehovah or Yahweh or Yud-He Vav-He. So it's definitely very separate from Allah. I mean, whether that's referring to the same thing later on is another question, but it does seem a separate deity.
Yeah, and they're embedded in totally different stories, and they behave differently. I mean, the Christian God is really nice. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jesus is always, he resurrects dead people.
Yeah,
our God is not that like...
He's obsessed with skin rashes.
Adonai, it can be a total dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And proudly so. I mean...
Abusive, he's not...
Unkind, a jealous God.
Yes.
So they're different, yeah. But I think it toughens you up. I mean, when we don't get the sort of sweet, the what's the sweetener I'm thinking of? The fake stuff. No, the faker stuff.
I almost said sativa. What? Aspartame?
No, but what's the brand?
Stevia?
It's Steve. No.
Sweet.
Splenda.
Splenda. Okay.
We don't have the sweet, sweet Splendor relief. That was
the specific one.
That was the phrase I was going for. The sweet, sweet Splendor relief of this God who atones for us on the cross. I mean, we have the super hardcore, Old Testament shit. And if you get through that, like, you better start a small business or win a Nobel Prize. I mean, it's
I like that.
The secret of Jews is no secret.
God's an asshole.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, do you believe in God?
I'm going to give an answer that that really serious God believers will mock as dodging the question, but it is utterly serious, which is I believe in God about 2 to 3 days a week. And I'm being totally
Is one of them the Shabbat?
Sometimes. And I'm being totally serious in that, which is to say that I actually think that very few people have consistent belief daily. I've met very few people. There may be 10 of them in the world who are atheists every day of their lives. And then there are about 10 people who I think are completely devout and convinced that there's a higher power every day of their life. And most people fall somewhere in between, which is there are times when they think that they're in touch with some sort of higher metaphysical thing. And there are days when they just don't feel that at all. And the question is just, where do you fall on that spectrum? So, the evangelical Christians I know will tell you that they're devout every day of their lives. Mm-hmm. In reality, maybe they're devout 80 to 95% of the time, but even they have days where they've lost their faith. They just don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. So
interesting.
Sweet ringtone.
Yeah.
And so, I'm someone who has moments, and I would say, again, like 2 to 3 days a week, if it's a good month, where I feel like there's a God. But then there are days when I don't.
In terms of your religious background, where do you come from, or how were you raised?
I come from Massachusetts.
Okay.
And
what kind of religious upbringing did you
Western
have?
Massachusetts.
Western. Okay.
No, my people are Jews, going all the way back to Sinai. Actually, they're Jews. My parents are irreligious Jews. I did not become a bar mitzvah. I did not have a ceremony to mark my becoming a bar mitzvah. Mm-hmm. Everything I know, I learned starting in college, pretty much.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I was a pretty uneducated Jew.
And are you practicing now, or do you consider yourself practicing now?
Yeah, I practice a lot. I mean, we go to synagogue. I take my kids every week and Mondays. We go to Monday Minyan.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I like ritual observance. I'm kind of a tradition person. Like, give me a tradition and I will dig it, even if it's absurd or silly or disproven. I like traditions,
How come? Why is that?
I don't know. Why are some people sports fans?
It's a ritual in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Yeah, it's a way of being with a community.
I like people. I mean, I think it's probably tied to my compulsive extroversion.
Okay.
Yeah. So find me a place where there's 10 or 20 people who will talk to me. I'll go.
It's good. It's organized. It's very... So you're saying that you were not raised in a religious with religion.
No. But I was raised by Jewish chauvinists.
Okay.
I mean, my parents definitely thought Jews were better than other people.
Okay.
They just didn't believe in God.
Okay.
Right.
We're just better for some reason.
I mean, my parents wouldn't have put it that way. My grandparents, who were actual communists, who really didn't believe in God and thought, with Marx, that religion was the opiate of the masses, they were extreme Jewish chauvinists, which is to say they didn't believe in God at all. But my grandfather thought that it was foolhardy to go to a doctor who wasn't Jewish.
Well, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, my grandfather, Walter, is an amazing man. And he would never have copped to the chauvinism, but I saw it.
Interesting. So, have you ever read the whole Bible, or did you ever? Okay.
No, nobody's read the whole thing.
I will.
You've read all the way deep.
No. Eventually,
but you will. You'll get there. That's what this project is.
That's the whole point.
It's a self-improvement project.
Yes.
No, I mean, I took an Old Testament class in college where I probably read 70% of the Old Testament, and I've read the Gospels and some of Paul's letters in the New Testament. Look, I do this for a living, right? I've probably gotten up to about 80% of it.
Okay.
But look, I know a scholar of Proust who's never read all of Proust.
Oh my gosh.
He read the books that he wrote his dissertation on, and
that's really divinely inspired.
And then he petered out. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite story or character in what you have read?
Yes, I like the scene, the part in, I think it's in Bereshit. So I think the story of, of course, the rape of Dinah is in
if you say so,
is in Genesis. And I really am in college, I got really into the scene where where Dinah gets raped, and Simeon and Levi, two of her brothers, two of her 12 brothers, right, avenge it by going and slaughtering every single male from the community that raped her.
Yes.
And I have a younger sister. I have a baby sister. And I just thought, that is fucking hardcore.
Yes.
Like, you know, on The Sopranos, like if somebody got raped, you know, they'd find the rapist and they'd kill him, right? And maybe his buddies who stuck up for him, they'd kill it. But in, you know, the ancient Jews, if your sister got raped, they murdered everyone from your town.
Yeah.
There was like
and they took the women and children captive.
Right, and then they basically subjugated all your women folks.
Yes, exactly.
And so it was like, sure, rape my sister, and everyone who ever remembers who you are will be dead.
Yep.
Basically. And it was so, and there was the profundity of that, the sort of the sense of like fraternal loyalty and obligation. And again, as a big older brother, I just thought that was super hardcore. And I've always loved that story.
I don't actually believe that Dinah was raped in my translation.
You think there was some consent there? You thought it was consensual?
I think it was completely consensual. Not to get into the whole thing because I've talked about it on the show.
Have you carried a mattress around Columbia University?
No. I actually read it as because the actual reason that there's a problem is because he was uncircumcised. That he was the violation was not a rape. I don't translate the word as rape.
That he wasn't a Jew.
Is that he wasn't a Jew.
I mean, that's a problem too. Don't get me wrong. But
no, exactly.
That's an interesting drash on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can talk about that after. Yeah. They've heard it before. Anyway, are you guys ready to read the Bible? All right. Let's get into this. This is Torah, a loose translation. Book 3, He Called. Episode 4, Birth. Chapter 28, in which the Bible mandates maternity leave. Leviticus 12:1 to 12:8.
Tell the sons of Israel, Jehovah said, that if a woman gives birth to a man-child...
I know that phrase is really silly, but I found it in one of the many translations that I checked, so I'm keeping it in.
Don't be such a PC wuss. Why are you apologizing? There's nothing man-child.
Man-child. I just imagine like Adam Sandler just coming fully formed.
When you think man, you think Adam Sandler?
No, when I think man-child.
Man-child, oh, I see. I think of a Faulknerian idiot man-child from As I Lay Dying.
A little bit more highbrow.
Yes. She's yucky for 7 days.
Okay, so as I've said before, the word, because people have challenged me about it, I don't really like... the word tuma means impure usually. I don't really like that being associated with impurity because it's a little bit more complicated than that. It seems more like there is a general status of not being clean or not being pure enough in some way for service in the temple in this. And there is a status of being clean. Because I don't want to attach a value to it, I translate it as yucky. Also, if you think about it, women after childbirth, especially before, modern surgical techniques, were probably pretty messy. So they shouldn't have been going into the temple very much.
They take baths,
Yes.
after this childbirth. They actually are allowed to shower and...
Oh, but they didn't have baths.
They had water.
Well, it's actually mandated. We'll get to it in a second.
How many kids have you had?
None.
I've been down this road, man. All right. The same length as her menstruation. On the 8th day, cut his damn foreskin off. She must stay in the purifying blood.
So they command her to stay in the blood and not clean it off.
She's resting.
Yeah.
And not touch anything holy or go into the sanctuary for 30 days until her purification ends.
Which to me is interesting because while it's like you can't clean yourself yet because the blood is sort of purifying you in some sense, it's also maternity leave. Like she's done out of work for 30 days.
Yeah, she rests.
Yeah.
She rests and goes and stars in an Anita Diamond book.
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
It's all red tent at that point. If she spits a woman child out of her cooch, what?
Yeah.
Cooch? I should have read this first.
You really should have.
She'll be yucky for 2 weeks, like her menses, and then she'll sit in her purifying blood for 66 days.
Yes. So women, if a woman gives birth to a girl, she's somehow more dirty than if she gives birth to a man, but also she has more maternity leave, so...
That's why my wife had 4 daughters.
Yeah.
Okay. When her purification days end, she must bring a 1-year-old lamb as an olah and a young dove or turtle dove as a sin offering.
What sin did she commit?
Well...
Way back when, I guess.
Do you have an answer for that?
No, not really. It's more of a rhetorical question. I suppose 9 months earlier there was something.
Are you saying I'm not the father of my children? Is that what you're getting at? a sin offering to the priest at the opening of the tent of witnessing. The priest will offer it to Jehovah to atone for her.
Okay. Go for it. Go ahead. Sorry.
You have a footnote in there.
No.
All right. So
that's not a good one.
To atone for her so she can be clean of her blood fountain.
So blood fountain, by the way, is now my favorite way to refer to a vagina. I'm going to stick my divining rod in the old blood fountain. The Hebrew is actually...
Is that what you call your girlfriend's blood fountain?
Blood
fountain?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, starting today. No, but I mean, the Hebrew phrase is the font of her blood, so...
These are the baby rules. Mm-hmm. If she can't find a lamb, she can take 2 turtle doves or young doves, one for the olah and one for the sin offering.
It's not specified if she can take one of each. Scholars debated this for centuries.
The Kohen will atone for her and make her clean.
That's chapter 28. She never does get to shower, which is a bummer.
Well, she was having her maternity leave. She was being fed oysters. No, those are treif. No. She was being fed
lamb and manna.
She was being fed Magnolia Bakery cupcakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's actually interesting to me that they don't mention her going to the mikvah, because they do mention purifying oneself after the menses is over, I think.
Well, they don't mention everything in this. It's, they have to get all the way to Sinai in just a few hundred pages, so...
It's kind of felt like they mentioned anything.
Shall I go on?
Yes, chapter 29, in which we discuss a mysterious skin malady for way too long. Leviticus 13:1 to 13:46.
If a man has a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot from the Tsara'at plague somewhere on his body, Jehovah said to Moshe.
So we are now moving into the questionable medical advice portion of the Torah. Leprosy... Maybe Tsarat means leprosy. Nobody knows, actually. I'm just transliterating what Tsarat means. Nobody has any idea what the word means. It's usually translated as leprosy, but as you'll see, as all the many, many things it can be, it's not leprosy.
He should have Aharon the Kohen or one of his sons take a look at it.
Okay, so you should go to a priest, not a doctor.
Right. If the hair in the plague has turned white and looks deeper than the rest of his skin, it's totally Tsarat. The Kohen will declare him yucky.
Yucky!
If you're so proud of that.
I would love to see this happen.
Yucky,
like if you go, on a different, like if you go to the doctor and he's just like, flu!
Yucky!
Yucky!
If there's a bright white spot that isn't deeper than the skin and the hair hasn't turned white, the Kohen will quarantine. Do you want to tell them a Kohen's a priest?
A Kohen is a priest,
okay,
yes, sorry.
The Kohen will quarantine him for 7 days. On the 7th day, the Kohen will examine him again. If the plague looks the same, but hasn't spread on the skin, he'll quarantine him for another 7 days. The Kohen will examine him a second time on the 7th day. If the plague is dimmer and hasn't spread on the skin, the Kohen will declare him clean.
Clean!
It's just a scab. He'll wash his clothes and be clean.
It's always a good idea to wash your clothes.
Always wash your clothes.
Yes.
But if, after the Kohen declares him clean, the scab spread all over his skin, he has to show it to the Kohen again. When the Kohen confirms the scab really did spread on the skin, he will be declared yucky. It's Tsara'at.
Yes.
When a man has the Tsara'at plague, he'll be brought to the Kohen. The Kohen will examine it. If there's a white rising on the skin that's turned hair white and also some flesh raw, it's an old Tsara'at.
Uh-huh.
The Kohen will declare him yucky but won't quarantine him. He's yucky.
He's yucky.
If the Tsara'at flowers all over his skin, making it the only thing visible.
Ooh. Yeah. You guys seen Deadpool?
Sorry.
Yep.
Let me take a moment.
Take that in.
Let me take that in. The Kohen will check to see if it's really covered all the skin.
So everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Since the entire body has turned white, the Kohen will declare him clean.
Wait. Why is Scab Man clean?
Yes. Because it's all whited over.
Okay, yeah.
It's all white. It's like it's crusted over now.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's clean.
You should tell them in case they don't know.
Yes.
That the Kohanim were the progenitors of people who are now named Cohen.
Yes, absolutely.
So picture yourself with a white crusty scab. You have to go see your friend Cohen.
Yeah.
And he looks at it. That's for realsies.
Yep.
Okay. But as soon as normal skin shows up, he's yucky again. The Kohen will examine the living flesh and declare him yucky. The normal skin is yucky.
That doesn't make sense.
It's Sara'at. But if the normal skin goes back to being white, he'll come to the Kohen, who will examine him and see the skin turned white. The Kohen will declare his plague clean. He is clean.
This is insane, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They hadn't discovered logic yet.
No.
Okay.
Look, like if you have cancer but it's all over your body,
Then you're clean.
Then you don't have
cancer. Then you don't have cancer.
Yeah.
Right. The cancer has you at that
exactly.
point. You actually don't have.
Then you're just a cancer person.
You're a clean tumor.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just about you've become you're a tumor of integrity. You're all tumor.
You have become cancer. You're fine.
When he has a boil on his skin and it heals, but there's a white rising where the boil was, or a bright reddish white spot, he should show it to a Kohen.
No, he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He should go to a doctor.
Upon further examination, if it looks lower than the skin and the hair has turned white, the Kohen will declare him yucky with a breakout of tzara'at boils. Mm-hmm. But if there's no white hair when the Kohen looks at it, and it's not lower than the skin and is dim, the Kohen will quarantine him for 7 days. If it's spread all over the skin, the Kohen will declare him yucky. It's a plague. If it stays in place and doesn't spread, it's the boil's scar.
Whew.
The Kohen will declare him clean.
Thank God.
If someone gets burnt and afterwards the raw skin becomes a bright spot that's reddish white or white, and the Kohen sees the hair has turned white in the bright spot and it looks deeper than the skin, it's tzara'at that has erupted after a burn.
Or, like the burn got infected or whatever. Yeah.
The Kohen shall declare him yucky. It is tzara'at.
What the fuck is happening?
But if there's no white hair in the bright spot when the Kohen examines it, and it's not lower than the skin, but dim, the Kohen will quarantine him for 7 days. On the 7th day, he'll examine him. If it's spread on the skin, the Kohen will declare him yucky. It's the plague of tzara'at.
It's weird how we don't follow any of these rules anymore.
It's weird there's no hardcore death metal band called tzara'at.
Yeah, exactly.
If the bright spot...
I want a song that's just all of this.
Yeah. If
the bright spot stays...
If the bright spot stays in one place, doesn't spread on the skin, and is dim, it's just a swelling from the burn, the Kohen shall declare him clean. It's the scar of the burning. Mm-hmm. If a man or a woman has the plague on their head or beard, I assume it would be the man's...
Yeah,
man's beard.
It's nice that there's gender equality, but some weird
The Kohen
women.
will examine the plague. Shasta.
Yes.
Did you insert that? Or
so
is
that is
the word Shasta.
No, I wish.
Like the soft drink.
I've got so tired of using behold every time we see the word hine that I translated as something ridiculous every single time. So Shasta.
Often soft drink related?
Yes, exactly.
Mr. Pibb.
Fago.
If the plague is deeper than the skin and there's thin yellow hair in it, the Kohen will declare him yucky. It is a skull. It's tzara'at of the head or beard. If the Kohen examines the skull and it's not deeper than the skin and there's no black hair in it...
By the way, if you were blonde back then, you were fucked.
Totally. The Kohen will quarantine him for 7 days. Then, on the 7th day, the Kohen will examine him. If the skull hasn't spread, there's no yellow hair, and the skull doesn't look deeper than the skin, he must be shaved. Forcibly, if necessary. Yeah.
Just hold him down.
With a Gillette Mach 3. All but the skull. The Kohen will quarantine the skull haver for another 7 days. The Kohen will examine the skull on the 7th day. Kerplunk! The skull, that was a hine.
That was a hine.
Yes. That was a behold.
Yes.
The skull hasn't spread and doesn't look deeper than the skin. The Kohen will declare him clean. He'll wash his clothes and be clean. But the skull spread. Not sure how much more of this I can take.
Oh, don't worry. We're almost done with tzara'at of the skin.
But if
I translated this, all right?
12 years of Hebrew day school put to good use. All right. But if the skull spread on his skin after he's been purified, the Kohen will examine him. And if he sees the skull has spread on the skin, he won't look for the yellow hair. Mm-hmm. He is yucky.
Because it's spread and you didn't even have to worry about the hair there.
But if he thinks the skull has stayed in place and there is black hair growing...
This is starting to make sense.
There's black hair growing there. The skull has been healed. He's clean. The Kohen will declare him clean.
Clean!
Clean! If a man or woman has bright spots on their skin, even white ones, the Kohen will examine it. And Shaka Khan! There really are... Diet Tab! There really are bright spots on their skin. Dull white ones. It's just a tetter flowering on their skin.
That's a
tetter.
thing.
Is that a typo?
No, it is a medical thing that exists. That is the translation of the word.
They are clean.
I'm not a dermatologist.
If a man's hair has been plucked out, he's bald. He's still clean. If the hair from just the front is plucked, he's front bald and is still clean. My kids actually love this passage where they talk about what it is to be front bald.
Right, front bald.
What is Donald Trump? He's side bald.
Donald Trump is like just patch bald.
He's side bald, yeah.
Yeah.
But if there's a reddish white...
Most amazing comb over I've ever seen.
But if
you've seen him from the back, look it up. It's incredible.
That's why there are drones that have actually descended behind his head.
And it's like, it's all directions. It's like a whirlpool. Anyway.
I like that band.
Yeah.
But if there's a reddish white plague on the bald or the front bald head, that's tzara'at bursting out of his head. The Kohen will examine it. And if the swelling of the plague is reddish white on his bald or front bald head, it looks like the tzaraat on the skin of his meat.
His meat, his basar.
And by meat, you mean
his meat.
His meat.
No.
Okay, he's got no problem in that department.
No, exactly.
Right, okay.
He's got meat. I like this because it's just like a port wine stain, like Gorbachev. This is not. This is not actually that serious.
He is tzaraat. He's yucky. The Kohen will declare him yucky. He's got a plague in his head. The tzaraat who has the plague, rip up his clothes, loosen his hair, and cover his upper lip. He must,
which, was a sign of mourning.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, covering your upper lip was a sign of mourning, where you just, I don't know, you had some kind of piece of clothing that would go over. Probably you also covered your lower lip too, because how would you do that? But
right,
that was actually a sign of mourning. And loosening your hair supposedly means, I don't know how you loosen the hair of a bald person.
They had a little fringe around the end,
right? Because they were just front bald.
They were top bald. By the way, if I might digress, what's coming back, and I don't know who's bringing it back, is bald people have to stop shaving their goddamn heads. There's like no shame in having the fringe bald around the back. It looks cool. It's old school. It looks folk singery.
You look like a Gonzo reporter. Or something.
You look like a crazy 70s radical. Like they didn't shave their head.
No.
And I just feel like
just own it.
Own it. Yeah. Just like be a bald dude. Don't be someone who ambiguously shaved their head.
Yeah.
It's coming back. You heard it here first.
Yes.
That's coming back.
Mark's word.
Also the maintenance of it. Like then they must shave their heads every day.
Yes, you have to. This is like 2 days.
This is like guys with hair talking about bald people.
Yes, exactly. No, I know. But I've hit 30 and I still haven't, so I feel like I'm safe.
It feels like you can go to a college reunion and hold your head high. I understand. The tzaraat who has the plague. Oh, we did that.
Yes.
He must cry out, yucky, yucky.
Everybody, yucky, yucky. Yeah.
He's yucky as long as he has...
It must be so sad for this
So
person.
sad. Yeah. But, it's all part of a cleansing.
Exactly,
I think everyone went through this from time to time.
This reminds me of Game of Thrones when... Shame.
He's yucky as long as he has the plague. He has to live alone outside the camp.
That's chapter 29.
They didn't like chapter 29.
Nobody likes chapter 29. That's probably one of my favorites. Anyway, chapter 30... in which the skin disease attacks clothing somehow. Leviticus 13:47 to 13:59.
I think these are called nits, right? Or what is it that gets in your clothes?
Oh, I don't know. Is this a real thing?
There's bugs that will land in your clothes. Yeah.
Oh, God.
When wool or linen clothing has the tzaraat plague in it, in the warp or woof, whether it's wool, linen, leather, or anything made of leather, if the plague is green or red, it's the tzaraat plague. A Kohen must examine it. The Kohen
or a local dry cleaner.
The Kohen will examine it and quarantine its owner for 7 days. On the 7th day, he'll look again. If the plague is spread in the clothing, warp, woof, leather, or anything made of leather, it's a malignant tzaraat plague.
Oh.
It's yucky. He must burn the thing that has the plague in it. It's a malignant tzaraat and has to be burnt in fire. There's a little redundancy there. Yeah. Burnt in fire.
The Bible is slightly redundant.
But if the Kohen examines it and the plague hasn't spread in the clothing, the warp, the woof, or the leather thing, the Kohen will command it to be washed and quarantined for another 7 days. The Kohen will look after the plague's been washed. If the plague hasn't changed in color and hasn't spread...
by the way, I think at this point we can say with certainty that plague is just a very stubborn stain.
Yeah. It's like everyone has one.
Yeah.
It's yucky. It must be burnt in fire.
Really? Okay.
It is a fret, whether it's inside or out. But if the Kohen looks and the plague has dimmed after it's been washed, he'll rip it out of the clothing, the leather, the warp, or the woof. If it's still in the clothing, the warp, the woof, or the leather thing, it's flowering, and the plague-ridden thing must be burnt in fire. If the plague has left the clothing, the warp, the woof, or the leather thing after it's been washed, he's got to wash it again, and it's clean. This is the Torah of the tzaraat plague, in wool or linen clothing, in a warp, in a woof, in anything of linen, to declare it clean or yucky.
That's chapter 30. Give it up for Mark. That is birth. That's episode 4 in Leviticus. What the hell was that?
Pity the poor bar mitzvah boy who has to give his bar mitzvah speech on who gets this parsha.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. I had such a metal one. I had Korach, which is great.
What's in Korach?
Korach is there's a rebellion against Moses and led by a guy named Korach, and then the earth opens and swallows them all.
Swallows Korach, right?
Yeah, this is just...
That one's really baller. Yeah. It gets swallowed up by the earth. It's very Tolkien.
Skin diseases. Yeah. Then, I mean, I don't know if it's better or worse when it gets combined with the next one, Mitsoro, which we're going to do in a month, which is also just like a continuation of the skin diseases in the home. Like they can infect your house.
It's like that part, isn't it? It's in Deuteronomy where the Lord talks about if you rebel against him, the things he'll do to you.
Yeah.
When he'll kill you and then kill your friends and then take your women folk and rape them and murder them. And like, these are the things that will happen to you if you disobey the Lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
that one is so hardcore.
That one's pretty metal. I kind of like it a lot.
It really is.
I mean, it's very good for bar mitzvah boys who
some anger.
Who have some anger or like big super nerds and like to kiss ass and suck up and are like, this is why I'm a good kid. Anyway, now is the time of the show where we come to the Devar Torah, which I like to translate literally from the Hebrew to mean Torah word, where Mark and I will try to sum up everything that we have just gone through into one word. So Mark, what is your Torah word?
Baller. It's so baller.
How so?
Just, it's like you got to wear the right clothes. They got to be clean. Mm-hmm. You got to present. You got to represent. And I just think, and if you're not cool, if you're sickly or unclean or yucky, like they rain down the priests rain down holy hell on you. It's it's about putting your best foot forward. It's about when you go to the club, you dress to impress. Yeah. That's what it's about.
I like that. Like, it's about, you have to be like...
It's like stay home if you have a flu.
Exactly.
It's like you don't go to the club and be all twerking up against the ladies.
Right. If you've got like a festering boil.
If you have a festering boil, you quarantine yourself. Like, you go to the Kohen.
Get out of the game for 7 days.
You get out of the game and you you re-enter society.
You burn your clothing.
When you are presentable.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. My word was yuck.
Yeah.
Because I spent a lot of time working on this.
Your word was shasta.
Yeah. My word was shakakan. Yeah. My word was yucky, actually, because I like saying that. And I really like that it's like, it really is like this social reinforcement of outcasting people who are gross.
But also welcoming them back in.
Yes, exactly. It's like there's a way to bring them back.
You're not sent away forever. I mean, Jews don't have a sort of inferior caste. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a couple castes that get special privileges in the temple, the Kohanim and the Levites, and that's kind of it. But they don't really get much. In fact, there are things they can't do. Like they're women they're not allowed to marry, for example, divorcees.
Exactly.
So they have fewer privileges. It's kind of a sucky life to be a Kohen.
I mean, you have to look at everybody's...
You have to look at everybody's boils and scabs, decide who's clean and everything. Yeah. But other than that, it's like in Torah, all Jewish men, but we've extended that to all Jewish people, are just equal. Yeah. And there is no priestly caste, and there aren't special privileges for clergy. And it's just if you have a sickness, you're cast out for a while, but then you burn your clothes and stuff and you come back.
Yeah. And there's actually a lot more to that next episode that goes into like the very detailed ritual that you have to perform in order to become clean too. So it's like
using a neti pot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's interesting that you say that because it's also around sin and things like that too. Like there's a process to be brought back. Like there are a few things that you do and you're just like done, you're cut off.
Really very few.
But very few. Some of them a little bit ridiculous, but very few of them. Yeah. They're like really for almost everything that you do, and it's very vague about what a sin actually is. Like you can be brought back. You pay restitution. You
apologize, baby. Yeah. The big thing is like you atone, and then you're cool.
You bring your offering, and you're good, and everybody eats it. Yep. You feed the Kohen.
You murder your offering and they have a feast.
But what's interesting to me about that too is that it's almost like it relies on the fact that people are going to sin because that is what the Kohanim or what the priests and the Levites eat. They eat from the offerings. So the more people sin, the more they get.
Unless they put it on the scapegoat whom they send out into the desert and never see again, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's where scapegoat is from. Like they piled it. Well, I knew but I don't know if podcast land knows that it's from Torah. It's that you put your sins on the goat and smack him in the ass and send him off into the desert. Yeah. And the scapegoat takes your sins away.
That used to be Yom Kippur and it was a lot more fun. Yep. What's interesting to me about this too is that like tsarat doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like the list of things that are tsarat are like many, many different diseases, most likely. To me, when I first got to this, it was like, this is ridiculous. Like this is just this whole there's no such thing as tsarat. It's this made up thing that they were just threw in here. And then I realized that it's probably not like this was written 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. People didn't know anything about medicine. And, there's nothing really about any other diseases in the Torah. And at first I was like, well, that's ridiculous. That's just like they're focusing on tzara'at. What is this nonsense? But I realized they didn't know when somebody was sick. Like there was no way you didn't take somebody's temperature. You didn't do a throat culture. You couldn't do a biopsy. The only indications or symptoms of illness were those on the skin, were those outside, or like maybe somebody was coughing, but that really wasn't much of anything. So this is, if we say it was written by people, which this probably was, this is them trying to write a medical textbook, most likely, like trying to figure out what to do when somebody got sick. They didn't have medicine, so it's just set aside.
And feeling like they were going to take some action, because human beings, we have a bias toward action. Like, rather than figure, well, the skin thing will run its course,
right?
Which every teenager knows about acne, right? Like, it just actually none of the creams work.
Nothing works.
But there's a bias toward action. You want to go out, you want to buy what's the cream?
Proactive. Clearasil?
No, what's the
Splenda?
What was the old school one with the ads? I'm having so many. Clearasil.
Okay.
There we go.
Cleaning, clear, and under control.
And what was the one with the pads?
Oxy.
Yeah.
Oxycodone.
Oxycodone. It's true. You say oxy now, it's a whole different thing.
OxyClean.
Back in the late 80s, when you said oxy, it was the pad that
No, but I mean, there's
you want to do something.
Exactly.
You want to feel like you have some control over your destiny.
Right. I mean, a lot of this seems like, it's infections. It's, there's a burn and then it gets infected, and they're just trying to do something to ameliorate it because they're probably didn't really have much to do. Some of these probably are like melanoma or skin cancer or really bad things. And maybe they quarantine people and they didn't get better, but they were trying to, which is very interesting to me. It's like, there's a real reason for this.
And they didn't necessarily think that it was caused by human failing. They didn't think it was an outward manifestation of sin.
Right. Well, not in this text.
Not in this one. Are there places where they do?
So because what the rabbis love to make things more confusing than they have to be, because there's no explanation of what this is, and thousands of years later they were like, well, this is nothing. This isn't a real disease. They decided that tsarat is actually a punishment that you get if you spread falsehoods or if you gossip, if you tell lashon hara.
And that's Gemara, that's Talmud?
That's Talmud, I believe, or Midrash, which is like, come on.
Yeah. That'd be great, though. First of all, everyone would have it.
Exactly.
So,
well, that's probably how they got away with it, because everyone had it.
Everyone had it, right.
But do you have anything else that you want to add or that this brings up for you? I think that's my kind of thought on this.
Certainly having been through a number of childbirths in the past decade, I wasn't giving birth, but my wife was. And, it is interesting what you said about the enforced maternity leave. It's also, I think the idea that you would stay in the blood for 30 days could be another way of saying you don't have to travel to the river, right? They do, the tradition, of course, in Judaism is that after you bleed, you do have to go to a mikvah.
Yes.
As soon as the bleeding is stopped.
Right.
And, that's how you purify yourself. So it's a vacation from that. It's a holiday from what could, especially if you were traveling in the desert, would be a fairly onerous thing for a woman.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
there was no epidural.
Yeah, there was. And isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife is very pro-epidural. If you don't have any children yet, I assume? None that you
No, but I'm very pro-epidural.
But be pro-epidural.
Yes.
And this is especially important if you move to like Brownstone, Brooklyn, where they're all like, oh, suffer through it.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Look, if you're I like
God created epidurals.
Exactly.
And they're very important to feeling less pain.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's like, well, my grandmother didn't do it. If it was around, your grandmother would have done it.
Your grandmother totally would have done it. Yeah. And it reads to me like a teaching of compassion, and also a teaching of saying like that although there are restrictions around what she can do and who can be near her, that essentially it's not like the tzara'at. It's not like, priests have to come in and burn her.
Oh no. That's okay. We're almost done.
It's not like priests have to come in and burn all her clothes and all that. Like, it's a natural part of life, and there's a different process for it than the other kinds of afflictions you could have.
No.
So,
No, it makes a lot of sense to me. I like to mess around with this stuff, but they were probably in a lot of pain and not able to do it. So they kind of have this dispensation from the normal cleaning process that they would have to go through after this.
Blood fountain, I'm not sure about.
Blood fountain.
I'm not sure.
That is in the Bible. Look it up.
I'm not sure about that translation. I've never read blood fountain before, but okay.
That's it for our show, I think. After this, we're going to have a conversation with the audience, if you don't mind sticking around for a little bit.
I don't mind.
Great. And if anybody else has any reactions that they want to express to what we've read, or they hate me for some reason, please stay, because I made fun of the idea that this is based on gossip. yell at me, whatever. I'll tell gossip about you later. Anyway, Mark, do you have any plugs or anything that you want people to check out?
No, I mean, obviously, and just as everyone should be subscribing to Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible, they should be subscribing to Unorthodox, which is the podcast I host for Tablet Magazine. And that's at iTunes or tabletmag.com/unorthodox. And yeah, we talk about the news of the Jews every week.
Yes.
We actually last week, we're somewhat irreverent. We get a lot of angry email for taking the Holocaust in vain and things like that. But
I get it. No,
you also against Holocaust jokes?
No, I love Holocaust jokes.
Do you want to hear a good one?
Yes, please.
Okay. Wait,
I
need to get it right.
There was is this the joke that it was a producer's son?
Yeah.
Yes,
our producer says, okay. So you know the joke. Okay.
Yes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Holocaust.
Holocaust too.
You said you'd never forget. We were told that by a 13-year-old Israeli boy, the grandson of Tablet's publisher, Morty Landau.
Yes.
It's so funny.
What are you going to do? You have
last
to.
week we created, Merrick Garland, the Supreme Court nominee who won't be, is Jewish. The family's name originally was Garfinkel. And we thought, how did he end up with the waspiest name in the world? Like, how does like his grandfather Yitz Garfinkel end up with a grandson named Merrick Garland, which sounds like straight off the Mayflower. So we wondered, how would we generate our own like Protestant Gentile name? So we created a WASPy name generator that you can plug in your name and it spits out. And then we got some mail saying from Gentiles, because a lot of our listeners are not Jewish. We got emails from them saying, okay, well, I'm a Lutheran or whatever. I'm a Methodist. I need a Jewish name generator to give me, my name is Karen Olson. How do I get a Jewish name? So we've been playing a lot with that. And if people tune in to the last couple episodes, they'll get that.
I enjoyed it. I was trying to figure it out. It was like the street that you grew up in.
No, that's your porn. So Stephanie Butnick stupidly not realizing where she got this idea from. She made her porn name her Gentile name.
Okay. Which kind of works.
Yeah, what was yours?
Well, the street that I grew up in was 169th Street.
Doesn't work.
And I don't remember the last part of it.
So my Gentile name generator was pick a name that was a top 10 name in the Social Security database from the 1950s. So, you'll get like Linda or Barbara or whatever. And then your last name is the name of your freshman dorm in college. So, which is often something very old. If your dorm was built in the 1800s, it'd be Welch or Bancroft or Fairweather. Of course, I got a lot of emails from people who'd gone to NYU saying, but I lived in Weinstein.
Right, exactly.
So, I can't tell you how many emails I got from people saying, but I lived in Weinstein.
I have the same problem. I went to Communion, so it was like the 2nd Avenue dorm.
2nd Avenue dorm, right.
169th Street, 2nd Avenue dorm. That's my porn Gentile name.
Apparently NYU and Brandeis have Jewish name dorms. No one else. It works for every other school.
YU, perhaps.
Perhaps, though, but they could be named Merrick Garland. I mean, they could have those anglicized names. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, check that out. I really love the podcast. Thank you for being here. As always, check out Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, website. We have a website. Email me if you want. Message me on Facebook. Tweet at me. It's a lot of fun.
Show up at your door.
Yes, exactly.
Cook you dinner.
Come to my house.
Give you a scalp massage.
Look at my skin rashes. Listen to the podcast.
Threesome with you and your girlfriend.
On Stitcher, iTunes, podcast app. Please share the show, rate and review us on iTunes. It really, really helps. As always, I want to thank QED. Thanks for having us here. Cambry Cruz, Lauren, the whole staff here tonight. I want to thank Wendy Chin for doing our marketing. She couldn't be here tonight. John Passaro on the sound. Give it up for him. I want to thank Mark Oppenheimer, our wonderful guest. Give it up for Mark. And thank you all for being out here and for listening. Make sure to listen again live at an undisclosed location on April 18th at 7:30 p.m. because next time in the Bible,
more skin nonsense.